what that does is when you use the pedal, it actually gives you almost as if you bent the notes. So, listen to it. So even if you're playing in a country band or country bass for that matter, you can get that effect this way. Okay? And in that genre, there's plenty more of those things. I think you get the idea on that. I get a lot of colors with that in solos. When you pick it into D tune, put this all the way up, you get no effect. But as you begin to depress the pedal, you get more of a chorus effect if you like to join your guitar player and fill this out. That sounds like. And of course it goes all the way. You generally wouldn't want that much, so you just want to get just a little bit. Basically the octaver, unlike this, you step on the entire pedal and it turns it on, again indicated by here. This button is 2 octaves down. If you're playing a guitar, the more of this you use, the heavier the guitar gets. On the bass, it's already a low-pitched instrument and has a low timbre, so you don't want to use too much of that because it'll sound muddy. So what I tend to do is just give just a pinch for that raw sound. This is 1 octave. This is the one you can use. This takes you 1 octave down, and what it does, it gives that low growl. So this is one of my favorite devices to use. And this, of course, is wet, dry, the same as the wah-wah. I use completely wet. As you're playing a song, take note. You want to add some bottom to the bass to round out the band. Out, in. That comes in very useful, especially in trio situations when we're playing. Sometimes without a control, I'll have to add bottom. You just heard me use this pedal. This gives me a lot of shred. And when we're playing more metal and more heavy stuff, which is my preference to play, this gives me a shred almost guitaristic, but it takes me to another zone where I can get more bass because you can dial in with this the amount of volume, which is on every kind of pedal board. Actually every kind of distortion unit. But here you can actually, it has a sweepable EQ, which means you have your highs, your mids, your lows, and your low mids. So I can, when I kick this in, normally with a distortion you lose the bass. I can dial it then back in. Hence I chose the metal zone. So if you're hitting chords and your guitar player, sometimes Simon will play solos and I want to fill his space where he was, I'll step on the pedal. Etc. I have to freak out occasionally. So while I'm doing that, these are basically my array of effects and things that I'm using now. And let me add that in choosing effects, don't choose them because someone else just chose them and they're popular. I would choose something that was personal to me. Like I told you, these particular array of pedals are what enhance my playing and what I enjoy to play with. You may have a different choice. But for now, let's go to the pedal board. Right now I want to talk about detuning. And basically what I mean by that is the normal guitars and bass, well, let's talk about bass, 4-string, is normally tuned E, A, D, and G. And of course, on a 5-string bass, you have a lower string, which is a B, and a high C on a 6-string bass. But we'll get on a 4-string now. How that pertains to the music today, the way that actually started was a lot of bands, say if they were in a different key, say other than E, and the song was in, say, E flat or D sharp, well, rather than changing position of the hands, they would just actually change their tuning. How that pertains to today and where it's very necessary is if you're playing in a grunge band or if you're playing very heavy music, you want the absolute lowest possible tones that you can get. So in my case, a lot of times it affects keys. If I'm with Joe Cocker or someone and we're playing in D on the A string, and the line is, now that's very funky and it's very cool. Or if I'm playing an 8th note groove, that's cool, but what I'm missing and why I like to play in E, or a lot of people, is because you have. So the way to get around that is if you're in D or C and you don't have a 5-string bass, is to take the D note if you're in D and detune the E string. Now, you've taken your E string and you've dropped it down a whole step, which gives you that bottom. So if I were to play the same lick now, so now you have the addition of the low note, which adds weight to the band. And when you have your guitar player and your drummer, you're able to go down in the sub-octaves and you give the band a lot more weight. Now, another way to detune, and a lot of bands do this, in particular, if you guys know them, Soundgarden is one of my favorites. King's X does a whole lot, and a lot more bands. Alice in Chains, most bands now detune. And what that means is you take the entire bass, whereas you were in E, and you're down now here. So you take the whole bass down a whole step. What this does is if I play in the same position, which is the E position, it is really D and it gives us a heavier tone. And the lower you go, the heavier the instrument is. Now, in detuning, you have to watch out because your action changes as you detune, so you'll have to set your instrument up. But you can actually go as low as you possibly can, and when you play the notes, it will be so heavy, Beavis and Butthead will never ever criticize you again. Okay, so, see? Now if you notice, the timbre of this instrument is getting like a lot heavier and a lot lower. So now I can take my octave, which I said, yeah, turn this down a minute. What that does is it creates that effect of absolute bottom. And when you're playing in a band and the guitars are all tuned that way, it becomes a lot heavier and a lot louder, which is actually what we all want.